As soon as I was ready to dive into making videos and doing doll projects again, I found myself in an unexpected situation. Stairs were forbidden. Yes, that's actually how I injured myself. All I did was stand up like a normal person, and the next thing I know, I'm seeing an orthopedic surgeon and getting physical therapy. This was immediately a bit of a problem, as all my dolls, crafting supplies, video equipment, and other tools are in a room on our second floor. So for a couple weeks, I was allowed to walk all I wanted, but nothing that might put stress on my knee, like stairs. It wasn't all bad, as I got to use that downtime to go do fun things around the city, prepare things for my next big book relaunch, and go visit my family up north twice. I also finally got the official on-paper diagnosis of generalized hypermobility spectrum disorder, which I already knew I had that, but seeing a doctor write it down had a different kind of weight. But it also brought some harder things, like making me really consider that some of the things I do are physically harder on me than others. I've had a lot more issues with my joints this year than ever before, so while I was recovering and unable to spend time on my doll hobby, I had to really sit and think about what I wanted to pursue when I got back to it, and what I could pare back on to make my life easier and less injury-prone going forward. Most of my energy is still going to my books too, and that's going well, but there has to be something I can do to ensure my hobbies go well too. So by the time I finally got to go back up to my studio this week, I had a bit of a plan, and I'd come to a simple conclusion. If I could only choose one hard thing to do, it would be writing, because that's physically demanding for me too. And all the other projects with repetitive motion needed to go. That means the first thing getting cut is anything that requires heavy sanding, and that means any really big modification projects, but also most of my planned projects to make my own doll sculpts. So my first sculpted doll body might be my last, because I won't be able to sand tons of 3D prints. I have a bunch of printed test bodies for this project, which I might sell off inexpensively as kits for other people to finish and enjoy. But this also means my plans to make some of the characters from my Artisan Magic book series into dolls gets terminated too. So I guess this early test print I was working on for Gil is going to be retired as well. I also decided I needed to pare back on my number of projects in general because it takes me longer to get them done now, and seeing stuff sit around that may take me years to get to is discouraging. I had a couple little blind box dolls I'd planned to customize just for fun, but I don't really have space for dolls that aren't characters, so I'll be letting all of those go. One of the hardest decisions I made was on downsizing my collection. It's that I won't be keeping my Oxinym doll, even though he was kind of a grail doll for me and one of my favorite doll bodies ever. But he's never even come out of his box again after his box opening, which happened over a year ago. And I just have to accept that I don't have the time for the complex project I wanted to do with him. I also decided that I won't be keeping the doll she body I'd gotten to use for Sarah. I really love this body sculpt, and I think it suits her well, but it needs to be dyed, and over the years that I've had dyed dolls, I've discovered they don't really hold up as well as I thought they would. It would be better for me to sell this one and get something made in a darker resin so I don't have to worry about color fading. If you look at Rune, you can see he desperately needs to be re-dyed. His face and body were originally a perfect match, and over the years he's faded a lot. I just don't want to deal with having to do dye upkeep. One unexpected benefit of not being able to get on top of projects right away was discovering the acrylic paint I used for color matching Garam's head went the other direction, and it darkened with age. This used to be so close to being a perfect match, and now he's so much darker and duller. I'm so glad I didn't get his face up done, only to have it darken. I'll fix this by using the Vallejo paints I used to color match my other dolls instead of the Liquitex I used here, because the Vallejo has aged a lot more predictably. One project I'm still on the fence about is Kefel, which is who my Feeple 65 Rosen is supposed to be. It hasn't worked out to have him share a body with any of my other dolls, so I need one he can call his own. I had planned to sculpt that myself, but if I can't do that now, I'll need to look at other options or decide if I just want to let this one go. But I think if I can sell both the doll she body and the Oxinym doll, I should be able to get a different body for Sarah and one that might work for this guy. So I guess it's not really downsizing as much as it is narrowing my focus. And everybody who's up here is going to stay here because they're all pretty much finished. And there's no point in selling dolls that are finished that I'm happy with. But I'm just going to like tighten all of my projects down to, if I can get a body for Cathel that I like, then maybe I'll keep him a little bit longer, because he doesn't really need mods or anything, he just needs clothes. And Garum, he's going to be an ordeal, but then if I can get Sarah a body that's already the right color, then that takes a lot of the workload out of her project. And then I guess that's gonna be it. That's like officially gonna be like the end of me getting dolls, and it's kind of like a weird feeling. But I think, you know, eliminating the mods and things that are really hard on me physically, and just bringing it in so that I'm only doing like sewing and outfits like I said I was going to, then, you know, that'll be nice in a way. It's really hard to let go of those projects, and, you know, they were things that I was really excited about. There was a time where I was just, you know, so excited about being able to sculpt all my own doll heads and bring all these characters to life. And then I learned how to sculpt the bodies, and I was like, all right, I'm unstoppable now. But I guess I am a little bit stoppable. One thing that I thought was really interesting about just spending all this time like trying to figure out what to do with my dolls, you know, and narrowing down to like what I really want, is I found that I was kind of applying that to books and stuff too. I have a multi-author project that I'm working on right now, where it's like each person writes a book that goes in the series, and each book in the series can be read by themselves. They're just kind of like all along the same theme. You see a lot of like fairy tale retellings where like each person takes a fairy tale and puts their own spin on it. It's kind of like that. But after I finished Spectrum Legacy, you know, I had this moment where I'm like, what do I work on next? And I've been thinking about that like so often. It's like, you know, what do you want to work on? What do you want to keep? What do you want to do? And I have a few small ideas for stories, like little short things that I might try to get out just to have, you know, something to share, something to talk about. But as I was going through all of my dolls, I found myself really wanting to revisit the Snake's Blood saga. And, you know, that's them. They're the Snake's Blood crew, and they are what got me started in the doll hobby, so I guess it makes sense that, you know, they would make me think of that. But over the past, you know, 6 years that I've been putting out fantasy books, I've just learned so much about writing and publishing, and I find myself regretting some of the decisions that I made regarding that series. And I don't think that I would ever regret putting them out when I did, because, you know, it was the best thing for me, and it was so fulfilling, and it was what I needed at the time. But as, you know, things change and as I get more experience, I find that the series isn't really landing with people the way I want, and I wonder if it's because I cut so much. If you've followed my channel for a while, then you were kind of here for like the publishing adventure, and I originally spent a lot of time doing like querying and pursuing traditional publishing. And there was a point where I had an offer from a small publisher, and I ended up walking away from it because it was just a very bad experience overall. But I had tailored that series to what the traditional publishers wanted, so there was actually a lot of content that I cut because I needed to make the books shorter to make them meet TradPub like length standards. And I also cut a lot of things that, you know, they said weren't going to be popular, because it's like, oh, well, you're using tropes and things that readers don't generally like. And I've started to wonder if, you know, maybe that damages the message of the series, and if they would be a lot stronger of stories, and if they would land better and find their target audience better if I put all of that back in. Because maybe some of the story elements that I used were not super popular with some people, but that would make them very popular with like niches. And when you're an independent author, you can really lean into that, and you can be known as, you know, the person that does this one thing really well. So I have found myself thinking that maybe I should take some time to go back to those books and like re-edit them to put a lot of that cut content back into the stories, and just, you know, update the books as they are so that people who download them, or like if they re-download the ebook version, they would get the newer updated one. But I've also been working really hard on getting my books into hardcover. Now that there are a lot more hardcover printing options, there were not any at all when I started. And then, you know, like I've been doing with the others, like I did with the Artisan Magic books, and like I've been thinking about doing with Spectrum Legacy, you know, relaunching them with the release of the hardcover versions and see if it goes a little bit better that way. It probably wouldn't be something that I do soon, just because I have a lot of work on the table for, you know, getting the other books into hardcover. Like Spectrum Legacy is a 6-book series, and I want to try to give myself enough time to do like one hardcover every 6 months, because it's a lot of work to expand into other formats. So I probably wouldn't be able to tackle it until like almost 2030, and that is just insane to think that that is so far away and yet coming up so fast. But that would also be like the 10th anniversary of the series, so. And I'd definitely be writing some new stuff along the way, but maybe taking some time to dip back into that story world and, you know, immerse myself in that, because that was what made me fall in love with writing in the first place. Maybe that would be kind of the refresher that I need. I don't know, it's a lot to think about, but it's like I'm at this really strange pivotal point in my life where so many things are changing and, you know, so many opportunities are opening up that I never thought I would have. It's kind of interesting because I feel like what I do across the next few months is going to really shape what the second half of my life is like. And once you get there, there's so much freedom that trying to pick your path is kind of overwhelming. But that's kind of what I'm planning right now, and I'm going to take some pictures of this doll stuff and see if I can get it put up for sale, and hopefully in the next little bit I will have some updates for new doll bodies and new plans and figuring out how to fix the ones that have gone a little bit wrong. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.